Good morning, Marty. How you doing?
Hey, another exciting podcast, Joe. I'm thrilled. I've looked at this gentleman's LinkedIn profile and looked at his website. Holy cow. So I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Yeah, so today we'll be discussing the business and technology behind the automation accessories, particularly the ones that are attached to or complement processes being performed by industrial collaborative robots. So that said, I'm happy to introduce Robert Little. He's the president general manager of ATI Industrial Automation, and he's enjoyed quite a long career at ATI, and we'll learn a little bit more about that in today's discussion. So, how are you doing this morning, Robert?
Very good. Looking forward to the talk here.
No, so Robert, I see you have Bob. Is it Robert or Bob? Which do you like to
You
go
can
by?
call me Bob. I'll answer
Okay.
to both. No.
Oh, okay, great, Bob. So how's the weather down in Apex, North Carolina?
We had our first frost last night, so even North Carolina does suffer from a little cold weather once in a while.
Yeah, so I live in Delaware, and we had actually our first frost as well. Um, so I know a little bit about the area down there. I went to school in Catawba College, which is over in Salisbury, North Carolina. So I love the region down there. It's fantastic, especially this time of the year for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I played golf down at Catawba College, and it was fantastic.
Wow.
So Bob, you and I have never met before. So I do appreciate you, taking the time, accepting my invitation here to join us on the PSA podcast. But I do follow you on LinkedIn. Number one, we're a robotics integrator, and we utilize ATI technologies in some of our solutions. But you are active on LinkedIn. I'm just interested, like, just to start off, how do you use that platform? Do you use it to stay like up to speed on market trends, or just to see applications that could use your hardware, or you just to keep the ATI name out there?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I want to say that pre-COVID, I was not as using the LinkedIn profile very often because I was able to get out and visit customers on a regular basis. I was traveling 50% of my time. And I was doing a huge effort to see that I was able to talk to a variety of customers. So we have a very large customer base. The robot market is pretty broad. And so there's a lot to do and there's a lot to see. And then COVID hit, and how do I stay in touch with the customers? Well, LinkedIn was a fantastic platform in order to do that. So I put a lot of effort and time in order to make sure that we can continue to reach out and have these conversations with customers. It's a different way of doing it. And now what I've learned is that now we're starting to get back to travel. I need to kind of supplement and do both. And LinkedIn is a much faster way of communicating, and it can be very effective. It doesn't replace the physical need to be in front of a person to have these conversations. Like this is sort of a supplement between LinkedIn and being out there as having this conversation.
Sure.
But now LinkedIn has proven to me that it's something I should be spending a lot more time with, even now that travel's back.
So you found it pretty effective, able to stay in contact with customers in the market?
Yes. Again, not as in depth at times as I would like, but I can see more things going on at customers now than I ever could have by getting out and visiting. So within 10 minutes, I can go through my robotics feed and I can see new plant openings, customer applications that they're fostering. And that to me is a tremendous amount of new data to me. So that is excellent. Now that might tell me I better get out and visit or see this, physically. This is important. So it gives me a lot of feedback on further communication I need to do.
Well, that's excellent. And I definitely want to expand on that as we go forward through the discussion, but I think it would behoove ourselves to let me introduce the ATI a little bit just briefly, and then I'll let you expand on it a little bit more. But since 1989, ATI has been developing cost-effective, state-of-the-art products and solutions that improve robot productivity. They're a world leader in developing numerous robotic accessories and robotic end-of-arm tooling, and their products can be found in thousands of successful installations and applications around the world. So to learn more about ATI Corporation, you can visit their website at www.ati-ia.com. That's www.ati-ia.com. So just wanted to get that out there. So yeah, let's
Thank you.
expand a little bit more about, what you were talking about, getting out there and seeing your customers. You're seeing that shift right now, now that COVID is kind of passed and you're able to get out into the marketplace. So, how do you guys typically go to market? Do you have a sales organization that's out in the field, or is it, Bob, is it just you, or what's that like within the organization at
Yeah.
ATI?
Well, we have a pretty substantial sales organization. I have outside people that are interacting directly with our customers. Um, we do not use a distribution system. We sell direct. We found that the robotics market needs that direct attention in order to get problems solved. In addition, we have a really solid application support staff that is engineers that are able to get down and dirty with some of the complex work where the sales staff needs assistance, and they'll get out to the customer site as necessary. And then finally, we have an inside sales staff that is extremely well educated on the product and can serve the customer. So I got three layers here: outside, inside, and application support.
Okay,
And it's pretty
excellent.
substantial. Yeah.
Joe, if I can jump in. So I
Sure.
think I saw it on your website, Bob. I think maybe on the video on your website, you say custom jobs. We love that. I guess that's kind of maybe unique, or maybe not in the robotics world, but you love custom
Mhm.
jobs. Why is that? Because there's such a need? Why do you love custom jobs?
People may not realize this, but I almost feel like the robot market has not gotten out of its, childhood yet.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is as we're evolving into applications, robots are beginning to start to penetrate. They require products to change, and if you're not willing to change, you can't get into that new product atmosphere. Let's take the logistics market. 10 years ago, no, there was not a lot of robot arms going into logistics. It's a new market.
Hmm.
Now you're starting to see a much more highly prevalent area. It's still very young, but that might require, as an example for us, we make robotic tool changing. That might require a different type of tool changer for a robot that is in a packaging environment. And in a packaging environment, we need to make a new product. So if I'm going to be in a logistics market, I have to be willing to orient my product towards that market. And
Hmm.
that's why we're constantly looking. And robots are always opening up these new ideas all the time. The robot market is reaching into so many different areas. And you saw through COVID how critical it was in the medical supply area.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, hey, this is it wasn't that the market was new, but it needed to expand rapidly.
Hmm.
So yes, customization is really a product updating to the market. Is how I look at it.
Hmm.
Okay, and it could be like a product that you already have in your portfolio, but does it need a tweak here or there just to make it more viable for that particular new application? So you talk about logistics and distribution and maybe like order fulfillment. Um, we're looking right
Yes.
now at a number of applications in that particular market where when you're looking at a distribution, logistics, or order fulfillment, a lot of times the end of arm tools may need some compliance because it's the products that you're seeing
Hmm.
may not always be what we call known. Okay, could be very diverse, and there's a lot of solutions out there
Yes.
now where you're picking to order. So a robot may go into a bin and need to pick products out of a bin in order to fulfill an order. And maybe that end of arm tool, because you're going into a bin, may need some compliance on that end of arm tool. And you make
Hmm.
those type of end of arm tool solutions where the end of arm tool can be compliant. You could have like maybe some force sensing, um, and again, we're looking at to ATI for solutions like that. I know my team is actually
Hmm.
looking in the catalog for solutions like that. So yeah, you guys are well ahead of other particular companies and OEMs in the market for that type of application.
Yes, and I will say sometimes the jobs are simple, and sometimes they're highly complex. I mean, just the other day, customer said, "Hey, look, I want to get into using robots for food handling. It was specifically slaughtering." And we said, okay. And we had to redesign a product pretty substantially with, not just using stainless steel, but we had to make sure that there were no outside holes that could collect bacteria. So
Hmm.
we had to completely redesign the product. It was a more substantial, design uh, job.
Hmm.
But if we want to be in that kind of business, well, robots are moving into it, and I clearly see the need for robots to be in food preparation. That's
Yep.
what we had to do.
Okay. So when you get an application like that, somebody comes to you. Was it an end customer or a system integrator that comes to you and says, "I have this idea. Do you have a solution for that particular process?" And if you don't, do you take an internalized look at it to say, "What's the market potential uh, in order for us to put this engineering into that product in order to make it market ready?"
Absolutely, any good company, has to take a look at their resources and use them wisely. So we always take a look at the benefit of the engineering that we're going to perform for the long term, and we will do it if it makes sense. In most cases, has the answer has been yes. We've been very aggressive about creating a product portfolio and upgrading it and improving it and expanding it over the last 30 years.
Mm.
Fantastic. So let's take a little step back, Bob, because as I mentioned prior, you've had a fairly long journey and a nice career here at ATI. You started back in 1989. So is that really, did you start at ATI when ATI was founded?
Yes, I was one of the founders of the company in 1989, and you know, uh, from a startup perspective, I lived it, and every startup has their own story. You know, are you going to survive? Are you going to make it? And we went through that startup period as well, where we're trying to create a market and push through. Uh, we had really almost no funding, so we had little to go on. So it was a bread and water event at the beginning, and but we got very good at what we were doing, and we finally started getting substantial customer orders within about 5 years of our being in business, and then we just grew it from there, one step at a time. But it really gave me a lot of insight of how customers were thinking at the time about robotics. And the robot market has evolved. In the 80s, it was flashy, but the robots' capabilities were lacking.
Hmm.
It was overpromised and underdelivered. So we had a robot recession. In fact, we had a robot recession when we started business at ATI. And then we came out of the robot recession with robots now were starting to meet the promises that they were, but it took a long time for customers to get past, the uh, over promising.
Hmm.
So the 90s were a slow growth period, but a growth period for the robot market. And then we kind of went into a malaise in the early 2000s where the robot market um, wasn't hardly growing at all for a
Hmm.
period of time. It was flat,
Hmm.
and it had these spikes up and spikes down. And it wasn't until the 2010 2008 recession that the robot market spiked, had a clear,
Mm.
definable year-over-year growth pattern, and hasn't. And then robots went into another robot recession in 2018, 2019, before hitting COVID, and that a lot of that is that there has been a recharging of the automobile market, or I say vehicle market in total, for electrical, and now that we're on a new growth track. But beyond automotive, we've substantially seen other applications play more important roles, and medical and logistics are two areas that we see substantial growth.
Sure. So you've looking back, I started in it's the robotic industry probably back in 2003 myself,
Mhm.
and it was more in the arc welding side of it. And then when I joined ABB Robotics in 2008, that was right at that time period where you saw
Yeah.
that recession time period, and it was pretty tough. But back then it seemed like the focus was really on automotive, right? I mean, you would see the ebbs and flows in the robotics industry as the automotive trends tended to ebb and flow with the need, the new
Yes.
programs and such. Then, as you mentioned, after the 2008, there became a surge in which you could really start tracking robot trends, and you saw the general industry really starting to play a more important
Mhm.
role in industrial automation, particularly to robotics. And therefore, I think that's probably when your market really tended, I would say, would have blossomed, because now you get into so many
Yes.
more different applications that you guys could take a look at, correct?
Yes, and that is and what we are good at, because went back to this ability to change the product or customize it. We are able to go after those trends much more rapidly, and we benefited from that. Yes.
Yeah, great.
I'm interested in Bob. That was somewhat of a challenging road. What kept you at ATI? How did you keep the faith through all those ups and downs?
Well, like I said, in the startup period, the first 5 years was a bread and water event. I think my mentality at that point, at a more youthful age than I am now, was that I could always get another job some other time. I'm young, and I just had I was willing to take on high risk, because I always felt like I'll never get to the point where I'm going to lose my life savings. Well, you're okay saying I'm not worried about losing my life savings. It's all you have is $1,000.
Right.
I got
So
you.
if
Right.
you're an older gentleman who has $1 million in their 401k, and you're going to lose your life savings in your 60s, yeah, that's extremely high risk.
Yeah.
That's the benefit of doing a startup and taking these high risks when you're young.
Yeah.
And either you take the high risk when you're young, when you have little to lose, or you take the high risk in that you're willing to lose some substantial money, but because of a certain amount of wealth, you're able to afford it. It's one way or the other, but that's the kind of risk that you have to be willing to take in a startup atmosphere.
Yeah.
So
Great
you're in
advice.
this. Yeah, it is absolutely great advice. And you went into this startup. Did you come in with a group of individuals that you knew to start the company, or is it just you?
Yeah, we started our employees. Our first, we first started, we had 10 employees. So I had, it was a total of 6 partners together who had ownership in the company. And I knew them, but I got to know them a hell of a lot better than I did prior to ATI. When you're in an environment where each of you are suffering, through your daily activities, you bond together very tightly, or the opposite happens. It's like a
Yeah.
magnet. Either you bond together tightly, or you throw each other out. And so the bottom line is, after 5 years, we were left with 3 partners
Okay.
out of 6.
Yeah, and then
And then
so
those
you
three
kind of
partners stuck with together forever. I mean, through the life of
Yeah.
of ATI until my other two partners finally got old enough and retired.
Yeah.
okay. So is that how you matriculated up through the organization yourself? I mean, obviously you're there in the startup and but now you're president
Yeah,
GEM, So you focused initially more on the engineering because that was your background and then into sales, right? Because you understood
yeah.
applications and now you're doing everything.
I think the bottom line is, and again, we're back to the startup atmosphere. You do what it takes, and if you don't survive. So what does that mean? Well, it meant that I had to become a purchaser. I had to become a salesperson. I had to become a secretary. I had to become a promotion a person, and I mean by that is advertising and getting the word out. I had to do all these little functions, and the benefit of that, of course, is that you learn all these different functions. So when you eventually become in charge of the company, you can very well give good leadership direction
Mm,
if you've done the job that the person you're talking to.
excellent.
That's the benefit. The weakness is that when you're doing a little bit of everything, you don't have any expertise in one area that you can be focused on.